Hey there, loves. Welcome to Life's Just Cray. I'm Kate, and this is where we talk through real life situations that have you up until 2 a.m. talking with your bestie, like, okay, but what would you do though? Real situations, real talk, no fluff. My grandma always said you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And that's exactly how I move on this show. Everything I say comes from my own experience, and I'm not a professional, but I'm also not here to tell you what to do. But it might help. Now, let's get into it. We're talking about self-growth today, and I think a lot of us have been exactly where this person is, even if we've never said it out loud.
I am 31 years old, and for the past 2 years, I have been doing the kind of slow and intentional personal work that I honestly never thought I had the discipline to stick with. Therapy every single week, journaling every morning, reading constantly about attachment theory and emotional patterns and how childhood shapes the adults we become. Learning how to set a boundary and actually hold it without collapsing the moment someone pushes back. Learning how to trace my instincts back to where they came from and ask whether they are actually serving me or just keeping me safe in ways that stopped being useful a long time ago. It has been uncomfortable and nonlinear, and there were stretches where it felt like I was taking myself apart just to understand how I had been built. But I have grown more in the last 2 years than I did in the entire decade before them, and I would not go back. Here is the part nobody thinks to warn you about before you start. Growth costs you things you are not prepared to lose, and it does not apologize for any of it. I lost a friendship of 6 years because I finally stopped accepting the way she spoke to me when she was frustrated, and she could not adjust to the version of me that had begun to require better. I lost a family dynamic I had maintained for years because I stopped being the person who absorbed everyone else's discomfort and smoothed everything over before anyone had to actually sit with it. I changed jobs because I finally believed I was worth more than what I was receiving in compensation and in treatment. None of those things felt like victories while they were happening. Each one felt like grief. And I had to grieve them without being able to fully explain them to people who had not been through something similar. And now I am sitting with something I genuinely did not see coming. I have been in a relationship for 2 years with someone I love. But as I have changed and grown and gotten clearer on who I am and what I actually need, I have started to notice that we have been moving in different directions without either of us choosing that. He is a genuinely good man. He has never been unkind to me. But I find myself feeling more alone inside this relationship now than I did before I started any of this work. Like I have outgrown something I was not ready to outgrow, and I do not know what to do with that feeling, or whether to trust it. I do not know if I have enough perspective right now to be making the right call, or if I am too far inside my own process to see clearly what is actually in front of me. How do you tell the difference between growth pointing you somewhere real and fear dressed up as clarity?
Hun, let me tell you something. First, I want to say something that I really think is important to establish before we get into any of the advice part of this. What you're going through right now, this feeling of loneliness inside your own growth, this sense that people are not quite keeping up with where you're at, that is one of the most least talked about side effects of doing the real personal work. And it is real, and it's valid, and it doesn't make you arrogant for feeling it. It's simply what happens when you start doing the kind of intentional self-examination that most people genuinely never choose to do. When you begin to truly understand yourself at a deeper level, it creates a kind of gap between you and the people who are still operating on autopilot, not because they're beneath you in any way, but because you're now holding yourself to a standard of accountability that they may not even have the language for yet. And I was thinking about something I heard recently that really speaks directly to what you're going through. When you start learning about yourself, and I mean really learning, not just surface level awareness, but the kind of deep pattern recognition that fundamentally changes how you move through the world. You develop an internal accountability that most people around you simply don't have. And that accountability is one of the most valuable things a person can cultivate in their lifetime. But it also changes how you experience absolutely everything. Your relationships, your tolerance for certain dynamics, and your capacity to stay in rooms and situations that no longer feel like they fit the person you're becoming. And that can feel incredibly isolating, especially when you're standing in the middle of it, wondering why no one else seems to feel the same way. But here's something that I don't think gets talked about enough when people are deep in the process of real personal growth. And I think it's something you genuinely need to hear right now. Sometimes in the work of learning what doesn't serve you, in the process of identifying and releasing the patterns and the relationships that were hurting you, you end up letting go of some of the best and the most alive parts of yourself, right along with the painful ones. Not because you intended to, though, but because in the moment, certain things felt like they were connected to that version of you that you were trying to leave behind. A spontaneity that you used to have, a lightness, a way of being open with people that felt like it belonged to the old you. And so you released it without fully realizing what you were actually releasing. And now you're on the other side of all that hard work, and something still feels quietly missing. Here's what I need you to hear. Having real boundaries doesn't mean becoming a smaller or more guarded or more closed off person of yourself. It means learning how to fully protect yourself while still being completely alive. There's a version of you that knows exactly where her limits are and still laughs too loud and stays up late having a real conversation and loves people with her whole heart and lets herself be seen. Those things were never the problem. And the problem was never your openness or your warmth or your willingness to show up for people. It was the absence of discernment about who actually deserved to access all of that. And you can absolutely have both. You can be healed, accountable, self-aware, and still be the person that you used to be before all that. And that's exactly what this work is supposed to lead you toward. Not a smaller, safer, more armored version of who you were, but a reimagined version. A version that would make your younger self proud. A version that would have helped your younger self understand who she was and always meant to grow into. The distance you're feeling in your relationship right now may be real, but before you make any decisions about what it means, I want you to ask yourself honestly whether you've brought all the full reimagined versions of yourself into that relationship yet. Because sometimes the space between two people is not a sign that someone's wrong for us. Sometimes it's a sign that we have not yet shown them who we've truly become. Alrighty, loves. That's all I've got for you today, and you already know where to find me. Slide into the DMs with your situation, and you might just hear it on the next episode. And if this one hit home for you, share it with someone who needs it, because that is what we do. And remember, just because I've said this advice doesn't mean you have to take it. You're the maker of your own decisions. But you must also be willing to deal with the consequences of your actions, if there are any. Until next time, take care of yourself.